Today what we're going to be talking about is setting up your first aquarium. It might not even be your first aquarium, it could be any aquarium, but maybe it's been a little while since you set one up and you're kind of rusty and you just want to get one started again from scratch. So we're going to go over some things that I think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make, and we'll cover that right now. I think one of the biggest mistakes is not planning correctly. And so this whole video is going to be about planning things correctly so that you don't get caught in that trap, okay? And as you can see, I'm in the middle of planning right now as well because I have not completely cycled my tank. I think it is cycled, but I like to give it an extra week or so, testing it with a test kit to make sure that I actually am cycled. Sometimes you can think you're cycled and then things spike up and you're not really cycled. Anyways, let's continue. The number one most important thing that you're going to want to do is make sure that your tank is actually the tank that you want. And how do you do that? You just don't go to the fish store, the aquarium store, and grab a tank and then bring it home and then start to plan. Okay, that's the wrong way to plan this. I'm gonna tell you right now, if you do that, you're gonna come home, you're gonna have this 5 gallon, 10 gallon tank. You're gonna go, that was really cheap and really nice, and then you're gonna realize that you can put like one fish in there, and no one really wants one fish. So go talk to your local fish store. Hopefully, a mom and pop store. They usually have a lot better information than the big box stores. If the only thing that's available is the big box stores, I would do a lot of research online and find out what kind of fish you want. If you're going to keep cichlids or something like that, I would recommend at least a 75-gallon tank. And if you're just going to be doing like tetras or something else, and one beta fish, then you can get away with a 5 to 15 gallon. I mean, a 10 to 15 gallon tank, right? So number one, find out what kind of fish you want. Because if you want, some giant fish or a lot of fish, and you get a small tank, it's not going to work out, and you're just going to harm your pets, and you're going to harm the hobby, and it's not going to be great. Anyways, yeah. So I would just say number one, choose your fish, and then you can choose the size of your aquarium. Okay, guys. Um, I'm a big fan of the larger tanks. As you can see, this is a 125. There is a rainbow shark over there, and a featherfin catfish over here. There's a common pleco in here somewhere, and that's the common pleco is a great example. This tank, actually, even though how big it is, it may eventually outgrow the pleco. May eventually outgrow this aquarium. Okay, so might not have them for a few years, and I have friends that have very, very, very large aquariums, and sometimes they're looking for more fish. So if that one outgrows it, it'll be fine. Those things can get up to 24 inches long. So if you would put a common pleco in a 10-gallon tank, a 55-gallon tank, gonna be too big, right? So choose the size of aquarium. You're gonna want to choose the size of aquarium based on the fish that you want. So do your research. I can't tell you what kind of fish to get, and we're not going to go into all kinds of species on this video, but choose the right size aquarium for the fish that you've chosen to get, right? All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is filters. All right. I've chosen the FX4 Fluval down there, and the thing about filters is you want to have a very high overturn of your water, okay? Meaning you want your water in the tank to have you want it to recycle through the filter at least twice. It's better if it can even go through 3 or 4 times. And depending on how many fish you have in your tank, what size the fish are, what your stocking limits are, is going to determine what kind of filter you want. Okay, if you're just going to have like a moderately stocked 125, then you could probably get away with a filter like the FX4, which is going to, I think. I should get the box out, but I'm pretty sure that it does 750 gallons an hour. It could be 500, but either way, that's going to be 2 or 3 times. And for what I'm doing, for most of you're doing is going to be fine, right? So if you have a bigger tank if you had a 300-gallon tank, you would want a filter that did at least 600 to 900 gallons an hour. Okay, that's just an easy rule of thumb. Okay, you want to make sure that you get that right, because if you don't have enough filtration, your fish are going to suffer because you're not going to have enough beneficial bacteria, and you're not going to have enough filter material in there to polish that water and make it look nice and clean. Okay. The next thing I would look at is the right heater. Okay, these are just the essentials. Okay, see this right here? This is an Eheim and it is rated up to 264 gallons. And this is also important because you can choose two filters for your tank. You can get a cheaper filter for your tank. I do not recommend this, as a filter is it's an electronic equipment, and if that falters or goes wrong, you don't want to fry yourself or your fish. So I would get a good quality one that is going to last you a long time. And these Eheims are really, really great heaters. They have several different models, so I don't have to sell you on this. I'm not going to try to sell you on this, just this one that I have. They have a bunch of different models that you can get, depending on which size of aquarium you have, and just the same as the filter roll. I would get at least a fill. I would get a. I like to have one heater. I don't like putting two or three heaters in one tank, because just, the more things you have, the more things can go wrong. And you don't want to have things going wrong, okay? You want to have things going right, and you don't want to have things that are going to break on you. And if one heater goes wrong, and it takes three heaters, or it takes two heaters to heat that aquarium, if one thing goes wrong, you might not even notice it until it's too late, and you wake up and your fish are all frozen, or they're overheated, or whatever's happened, all right? So if it was me, I would choose to spend a little bit more money on the heater, get a good reliable heater that you know is going to work right. Also, if you have two heaters, the other thing that can go wrong is you might not be able to match up the heat exactly right. Some heaters aren't exactly calibrated. For example, as you can see over here on the right side, I have a little thermometer right there, hanging right there. Never rely on the heater to tell you the right temperature, right? So on that heater over there, I have it set to like 70, like 3 or 74, 75-ish. And in reality, the tank's 76, 77-ish. I'm not going to... I should go look and see exactly what it's at right now. But it's about 2 or 3 degrees off, right? So if I had two heaters in there and they were both calibrated to the same temperature, they may not be really calibrated to the same temperature, if you get what I'm saying. Anyways, let's move on. Those things are probably the most essential things to getting your aquarium started. Okay, you don't have to have a substrate. People do glass bottom aquariums and stuff like that. But as far of course, fish are essential to starting your aquarium. Filter is essential, and the heater is essential. All right, guys. So make sure you choose one that's rated to the amount of gallons that you have. In my case, this one's rated to 264, so about 130 gallons more than what I'm running, so it's going to be completely fine to run this aquarium. Okay. The next thing we're going to talk about is substrate. I chose sand. Okay, sand. Cichlids love sand, and a lot of catfish love sand too. Sometimes it's necessary for certain fish to have sand, and other fish you want gravel. So do the research depending on what kind of species you're running. Sand. I love the look of sand. To me, it's easier to clean, and the fish that I'm going to be stocking this tank with are going to love it compared to gravel. All right, so that's why I like this. The benefits of gravel, I would say, is I think it's easier to clean sand because you can just clean the surface. Not that many debris are going to fall into the sand and kind of get buried down in there, and the cichlids bury it themselves. Whereas gravel is going to be a lot of food can kind of trickle down into the gravel, into the substrate down below, and that food, even though you don't see it, it's still going to rot, and it's still going to create ammonia and other toxic chemicals that we don't want. The one thing that gravel is good for is when you clean it, you can kind of you can stick a siphon down into the gravel, right? Like you can literally just siphon right into the gravel down here and suck up detritus and all that stuff that goes down into there, and it'll just it'll suck it up. And I'm gonna make some more videos about this stuff as well in the future, and the gravel will just fall right back into the tank. If you do that with sand, the sand's gonna get sucked up into your cleaner or your siphon, and you don't want that to happen. With sand, you kind of just skim the surface of it, and it'll brush out most of the detritus and stuff like that, if that makes sense, guys. Anyways, back to the topic at hand. For the most part, find what fish you want, like we said before, find out what they prefer, and go with that. I prefer a more natural look, so I chose a very natural looking sand. You can get black sand, you can get like super, super white sand, you can get all kinds of different things. Okay, guys, just it just depends on what you like. But I would choose your fish and then choose the style of substrate. Lights. Okay, lighting is really important, but it isn't as important as, of course, as some of the things we've already talked about. A lot of tanks will come with a decent lighting setup. For example, this one was a 125 from like PetSmart or something. I got like on a like almost like more than half off or something. I usually try to support the mom and pop stores, but I couldn't pass up on this deal. Um, but some of those come with decent lights. In my case, I always like to upgrade the lights because who likes stock lights? They work, but you can get much better. And what I have right here is the current USA Serene lights, and they're actually I'm gonna do a full video about this in the future, but it's pretty cool. If you can see my background, it's a lighted background, and you can do some really cool stuff with this. You can just change the colors at whatever you want. Um, anyways, um, I like good lights, especially if they show off the colors of your fish better. If you're doing saltwater tanks, lighting's a lot more important than it is on freshwater. And the lighting in saltwater is very, very, very important. Actually, it's probably one of the most important things, especially for certain corals and different things. So, when I say lighting's not that important, it's more. I'm talking about freshwater and what I'm running right here, okay, guys. But if you're running saltwater, it's kind of a whole new ball game. All right, now we're going to talk about cycling your aquarium. Okay, you've gone and gotten your fish tank. You've gotten some decorations, some rocks, whatever, fake plants, and um, now you're ready to set everything up, right? And throw all kinds of fish in there. No, wrong. You have to make sure you cycle your aquarium, okay, guys? And um, you can look good. I'm not going to draw a huge diagram for you guys, but basically, real quick, what a cycling means is your fish are going to eliminate, they're going to eat food and they're going to eliminate waste into the aquarium. Okay. Also, any uneaten food is also going to land on the bottom, get sucked into the filter or wherever it goes, and it's going to rot. Okay. And when it rots, it's going to form a compound called ammonia. Now, what ammonia does is it's very toxic for fish. Okay, you don't want any ammonia in your tank at all. Okay, but in the beginning, it's necessary because what happens is ammonia is going to spike up. Okay, I'm just going to draw this with my finger. It's going to grow. It's going to come up. It's going to start growing. And then there's what's called nitrifying bacteria. Okay, and those are going to start forming. And as soon as those start forming, they're going to eat the ammonia, and you're going to see your ammonia levels start to fall. Okay, and those are going to kind of flatten out over here. Okay, those same bacteria that eat the ammonia are gonna start eating the ammonia, and they're gonna start producing waste in the form of nitrites. Okay, and those are gonna also peak. Another bacteria is gonna come along, start eating those, and the nitrites are gonna fall down as well, and they're gonna flatten out. Those nitrites, the bacteria that eat the nitrites, are going to produce what's called nitrates, and those are also going to kind of form the same little bit of a bump as the levels increase, and those don't form the bump. Sorry, those ones continue forever, and if you let those get too high, that's also very toxic for your fish, and that's why you need to do water changes. Okay, so that's kind of the water. That's kind of the nitrogen cycle, right? I mean, it's very basic. It's ammonia grows, gets eaten by nitrifying bacteria. Nitrites grow, gets eaten by same different. It's similar bacteria. It's turned into nitrates. Nitrates grow forever. You got to do water changes to get rid of those. Okay. Now the important thing is when you first start your fish tank, there's not going to be any of these bacteria. There's certain products you can buy that are supposed to boost this. You can do a fishless cycle where you use actual like pure ammonia. You got to make sure it's aquarium safe and no other chemicals in there. You can use that to cycle your tank. You can just throw every few days, or you can just throw some fish food in there and let it rot to start the cycle. The point is you need a source of ammonia, and once that starts going, you're going to see the cycle like I just explained go until you have zero ammonias and zero nitrites, and then you have nitrates kind of getting produced constantly. Okay, in order for this to happen, you have to have waste, and the more waste there is, the more bacteria needs to be there to sustain it. So, for example, so it's very important that you have a cycled aquarium. Okay, if you throw a bunch of fish in there, what's going to happen is that ammonia is going to spike, and you're probably just going to kill all your fish. If the ammonia is already gone and the nitrites are coming, and you throw a bunch of fish in there, but the nitrates haven't been formed yet, and there's not enough nitrifying bacteria to eat those nitrites and get rid of them and form it into nitrates, your fish are also going to probably die. Okay, so it's very important that you wait for the ammonia to dip down to zero and the nitrites to form down to zero, and Wait for wait for and that's why I have a test kit down here. I'm gonna kind of get this down there. There you go. That right there is a API test kit, as well as some other chemicals that you see down there. I'm gonna go over those later. Those are important for taking out chlorine from the water, stuff like that. Anyways, you always want to take the chlorine out of your water before you put the water in your aquariums. Otherwise, you're gonna actually kill all these bacteria, and it's gonna start the cycle over every single time. So, anyways, get yourself an API test kit, and you want to test that every 2 to 3 days when you're cycling your aquarium to see where you're at, to see if you need to do any. It depends on if you're doing a fishless cycle or if you're doing a cycle with fish in. If you're doing fish in cycle, you're going to want to do some water changes and make sure that you keep those parameters under control. That way you don't kill your fish. You got to be very, very careful if you're doing a fish in cycle. I don't recommend it, but if you're very experienced and you know how to handle it, you can do it. But make sure you test those parameters every couple days, and make sure you're doing water changes frequently, keeping those levels to a sustainable level. And then once you get the aquarium, zero ammonia, zero nitrites, you can begin adding new fish. Now, do you want to do a cycle and then just throw in 50 fish at one time? Definitely not. There's a load. I'm not sure what to call it, but there's a load of there's a certain level of ammonia and nitrites that your aquarium can handle. Okay, so if you've done a fish in cycle, for example, with 2 or 3 fish, your aquarium, the bacteria in there are going to be able, and you have zero ammonia, zero nitrites. Your aquarium is going to be able to handle those 2 or 3 fish wastes, and the amount of bacteria in there is going to be great for that, right? But if you add 2 or 3 more fish, now you have 4 or 5 fish in there, right? After it's been cycled, your ammonia might kind of come up a little bit, but that bacteria is going to reproduce. It's gonna see that it has enough of a food source that they're gonna multiply quickly and be able to take that over, and they're gonna multiply, and like I said, and they're gonna be able to take that extra load and meet that demand, right? But if you only have this many bacterias, right? If this is zero bacteria and this is the amount of bacteria that is necessary to keep your ammonia to zero and your nitrites to zero, and you throw fish, 20, 30 fish in there at one time, and they produce this much waste, and your bacteria can't keep up with it. That can be very harmful to your tank as well as the bacteria. And your fish, you're gonna have to wait for this to meet the demand, to reach that demand where it can actually handle that load of ammonia and nitrites, and your fish probably aren't going to make it. So once you're cycled, don't just think you're safe to just throw all the fish you want in the world in there. You got to make sure that you do it over time and do it slowly and responsibly, so you can maintain that cycle. And there's chemicals and stuff, and you can kind of, and not chemicals, but there's like live bacteria you can buy from different companies like Fritz or API or whatever. Tetra has one too, I think, that you can help to supplement. So some people will add fish, and whenever they add fish, they add some beneficial bacteria as well as in there as well. So, anyways, guys, just be careful. And then even after you have your fish tank all going well, like I said, you have to do water changes. And some people just do the 20% to 30% water change every 2 weeks. Some people do a 10% every week. Some people do half a tank every single month. I can't tell you what to do on yours. The way I do it is I just test my water after I have a cycled aquarium and the fish have been in there for a while, and it's just kind of like a standardized aquarium. I like to test my parameters once a week, and I just do water changes on that. And I like to keep the tank full of water. If your tank evaporates, you're also going to be condensing those chemicals to do a smaller amount of water. So I like to keep that full. But I like to do water changes based on the actual parameters rather than guessing. So, anyways, guys, this is kind of just how you start an aquarium. I know it's a little bit of a longer video. I hope you guys stuck through it. But yeah, you want to make sure that you just follow those guidelines. If you have any questions, please ask me down in the description down below. And you know what? I'm gonna go grab some fish tomorrow. This is all cycled up, and I've given it an extra week or so, and we're ready. So that's exciting. Anyways, guys, make sure you subscribe here, follow on Twitch as well, and we'll see you later. Thanks a lot.